Telecast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's Telecast. It's a LATAM special this week, and on the show, Angela Colla, Head of International Sales at Brazil's Globo TV, joins me with Fabricio Ferrara, International Business Director of Prensario Internacional. And this week, K7 Media's Girts Licis looks at what's big and how to do business in Latin America. It's all coming up on this week's Telecast. So this week's episode is inspired by and dedicated to Marcelo Bielsa, the inspirational Argentinian football manager who has miraculously guided Leeds United to England's Premier League after 16 years of perennial underachievement. He's shown how unrelenting dedication and fanatical preparation can unite, inspire and lead a whole city to success. So in his honour, it's a Latin American special this week. And my first guest on this week's show is Angela Colla, Head of International Sales at Globo, the largest Latin American producer of exclusive, multi-genre and multi-platform content, with more than 3,000 hours of entertainment and 3,000 hours of journalistic content per year. And joining Angela is Fabricio Ferrara, the International Business Director of Prensario Internacional. In this role, Fabricio has expanded the company's presence in the international marketplace, with special emphasis on Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and North Africa, and the Asian Pacific regions. Welcome to the show, Angela and Fabricio.
Hi, Justin. Thank you very much. Very nice being here.
Hi, Justin. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's a pleasure.
It was great to have you on, Angela from Sao Paulo and Fabricio from Buenos Aires. I thought that as Brazil is such a huge TV market, but perhaps not in the international spotlight as it might be for a country with a population of 210 million people, I thought we'd explore the TV industry landscape a little bit in Brazil and also in Latin America. So, Angela, coming to you first, Latin America still really in the grip of COVID-19 right now, and it's just been reported the last couple of days that Brazil's now got a reported 2 million cases, which is obviously devastating. How's the pandemic affected you and your role at Globo?
We're the second country in the world with most cases and most deaths in the world. So it's a pretty severe situation we're facing here. Since March 16th, we're all at home at Globo. Only the really necessary people to be on site is right now working on our offices, but that's about 10 to 15% of the total employees. Globo has 15,000 employees, so only about 15% of them are on the journalism teams. All the rest of the teams are all working from home. It's interesting to note how much we work and how much productive we can be at home. It's actually a bit surprising even. Besides all the sad situation out there, we've all been working a lot, and thanks to technology, we can be in contact with all our clients. I mean, on my position, we used to travel a lot. It depends on each one from my team, but I would say from 8 to 10 international trips per year. And that all has been stopped during all those times, including the events we used to participate. So this year has been very affected by that. But on the same time, we have been in contact with the market a lot. Internally, our internal meetings and our conversations with our clients and our potential clients have not stopped at all. It's insane even how much we talk. I have this feeling that everyone isolated at home all over the world, people feel the necessity of talking more to each other to know what's going on and how everything is on other countries and on other markets. We've been dealing easily on that part. I have to confess, it has not been a challenge as much as I thought it would be. And we've been talking to everyone, and business continues thanks to technology and to all those tools we have right now. It's difficult, but life goes on.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll talk a little bit later about distribution, international sales, and how everybody's coping. Fabricio, I'm used to seeing you at lots of different markets as well, all around the world. How's the pandemic affected you in Argentina?
Well, let me tell you that the situation here is not the best right now at this moment. Even we are one of the country which is less affected by COVID because our quarantine start really early by the end of March. But now the peak is going up and up and up. And actually, we are finishing today the 8th quarantine announced by the government. So we are all expecting what's going to happen tomorrow and the following days. We expect to have a little opening in terms of shoppings and in terms of running and other activities outside, but the situation is not solved at all. And we are all very worried because we are starting to have some news from the hospitals and the different clinics where the beds for people who is badly affected, they are starting to run out. So at this point, we are all at home. We hope to be here at least for 1 or 2 months because we are going through the winter, and that's an important information because it's not the same as summer. So we are adding to COVID all the other diseases and all the other problems of the winter. Business has not stopped at all, thanks to the technology, but also thanks to the great relationship we have been building in the international market. We are all expecting to have the next event as soon as possible so we can all meet again and have a great business meeting discussing the business. But it's also true that the business has not stopped because most of the companies are developing new projects and thinking on the future. I think that's our north. We need to understand that this is not going to be now or tomorrow. We will have to live with this during the next couple of months. So stop is not an option, definitely.
So yeah, and perhaps even more than that, actually, because the term new normal is perhaps overused, but I think it is, very applicable to the way that we've been doing business in the TV industry. So looking at Brazil, first of all, Angela, can you give Telecast listeners a bit of an overview of the market, of the ecosystem within Brazil?
Brazil is a huge country with over 200 million people on it. And we have our free TV channel in Brazil that is present in 99.9% of the country. So that's a huge reach. We have 5 local stations plus 120 affiliates. And that's how we can reach that big population. And with that free television getting out there in the whole country, we can make our content available to all that population. And that means that every 10 people in Brazil, 8 consume Globo, TV and digital. We have 100 million people daily on our channel watching our content. We have content for all the families, for the whole family. So that means people watching more. The media consumption in Brazil has increased a lot during this period. And that made Globo get even higher audiences during this period.
Is Globo a private company or is it state-owned?
It's a private company. It's a family-owned company. It started over 50 years ago. It started with a newspaper company, and then it got bigger and bigger. Now it's on the 3rd generation already and taking over the management of the company.
Yeah.
Now we have still newspaper, the free TV channel, over 20 pay TV channels, and an OTT platform called Global Play that is getting bigger and bigger every day. A few years ago, Netflix started operating in Brazil. Amazon Prime Video is in Brazil too. So that's basically the competitive scenario for Global right now, because the other free TV channels have always competed between themselves. Global has always been the first position channel, free TV channel in Brazil. And then the other 3 were kind of competing between themselves on the free TV market.
Okay.
The pay TV is also dominated by the global pay TV channels.
Yeah.
And so now internet, YouTube, Netflix, those are the big competitors right now. Global Play used to be a catch-up service for the global free-to-air channel only. Now it's a really a real OTT direct-to-consumer platform that has originals being produced for it and very, very edgy shows, series, and it's different than what's on the free television.
Mm-hmm.
It's really original OTT content, so it's a different type of telling stories and producing content.
And that's subscription based.
Subscription based, and also acquiring content from international content. So movies and American series and all types of content. So it's a really robust OTT offer. And that's what's driving Globo's strategy right now. Globo is on a transformation, a very, very transformation on its companies, because we are right now joining 5 different companies into just one. And so it's a real challenge. So we're doing this process on the next couple of years still. It has been already done a big part of it, but it's not finished. The big plan is to focus on the direct-to-consumer strategy, be total data-driven, consumer-centric, turning into a media tech, which means investing as much as we can on technology.
Okay.
In order to and use it to generate business. So everyone has this 360 view on the markets and on the consumer habits. Whatever happens on the free TV will continue on the digital platforms and out on pay TV channels. So it's a deeper look on all our strategies and businesses in a way that we bring more value to the clients and to the advertising companies.
Fabricio, this is obviously a huge generalization because LATAM is 20 countries with hundreds of millions of people. In terms of SVOD and AVOD and the different digital services now that have obviously disrupted just about every market throughout the world, how is that playing out in LATAM?
Well, it's important to clarify, as you said, that in Latin America, apart from Netflix and Amazon, there's only one pan-regional competitor that can be, I don't know if it's the same size of them, definitely not, but it's an important company called América Móvil. And América Móvil is a Mexican company which is also operating an OTT called Claro Video, which is also operating in Brazil. So beyond these 3 companies, there are not much regional or local OTTs, SVOD, AdVOD. So the market situation in terms of the subscription base is a bit dominated by these companies. What Globo is doing in Brazil is very interesting because they have the content, they have the audience, and they have the know-how on the local market. So it's a very strong competitor on Netflix and Amazon. We have just seen the release of Netflix subscribers for second quarter in 2020. And let me tell you that Latin America is the 3rd largest region outside the US and EMEA. So totally in the second quarter, there was 36 million subscribers. And it is interesting to understand that Netflix is gaining more subscribers, at least in Argentina, compared to pay TV. Just to give you an idea, the largest operator here in Argentina, the pay TV operator, is Cablevisión from the Grupo Clarín, another big group in the region, and they have almost 3.5 million subscribers, but Netflix has almost 5. So the situation is getting hotter for everyone, and competition is also getting hotter. In Mexico, the other big media group, which is Televisa, is also owning a system called Blim TV, which started to be a pan-regional OTT. Now, I really don't know much about it because they are becoming more local and they are trying to focus on the local market, but also in Central America. So the full OTT event is also reinforced by the recent news of HBO Max that will be launched first in Latin America rather than any other international market. So what we are going to see from now to the next couple of months is going to be really, really interesting.
Both in Brazil and wider LATAM. Do you expect to see the development of more and more niche SVODs as well? Obviously, you've got these huge companies that are launching and doing very well with their general subscription services. Do you expect to see a following wave of more niche services being launched?
We are all waiting the same. The full global map of media companies and direct consumer operator is going to be pretty the same. I mean, we will find between 7 to 9 companies operating on a global scale. Actually, I'm not sure at all that all homes will be able to have every single platform. But what I'm seeing now, and it is very interesting, at least in Latin America, we recently seen an article from Parrot Analytics saying that Amazon Prime is gaining good quantity of subscribers in Latin America, and I think the situation is because they are launching some originals in the region, and they are starting to promote better their content. And Amazon, I think, is going to have a very good summer slash winter in this region until Disney Plus arrive to the region by the end of the year. So everything is going to be changing so fast, so quick. So local companies, as said previously, like Globo, like Grupo Clarín, like Televisa, they are reinforcing their presence on the digital business because they understand that these huge international media companies are starting to become more aggressive. But I definitely believe local has its own rules, and you need to know the market to take that piece of the cake. To be honest, I can talk about a picture just right now, but tomorrow is going to be another, and in the next couple of weeks it's going to be another. But we are very, very excited because in terms of business, Latin America is becoming more relevant. Actually, it never stopped being relevant, but at the same time, with this new platform, everyone internationally is most interested in the region, and I think Angela has good information on that to share.
I think Latin America is turning very, very digital right now. The access to broadband connections is larger each year. People are very connected and very, very digital. The digitalization of the territory is huge right now. And even the process of turning the advertising investment in digital in a few countries is already bigger in digital than on traditional TV. So that means people are on digital platforms. And in Chile, for example, it's already, I think on the past 1 or 2 years ago, it's already bigger. The total investment is bigger on digital platforms. On our platforms in Brazil, we see the same thing. It's not 50-50 yet. The traditional platforms are still bigger, but we see a shift. That means a lot. And people consume, people are crazy. Latin Americans are crazy about content. And so that means it's a trend that we see all over the world, and we face the same in Brazil and in Latin America. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting what you were saying earlier on, Fabricio, about HBO Max rolling out in Latin America before many other territories. So it seems like obviously a whole load of disruption going on. Everyone's rushing to digital. Some really important services are launching there first. It's all to play for at the moment. I wonder, with the effect that COVID has had, particularly in Latin America and Argentina and Brazil, we're all expecting, I think, to see a huge commercial downturn a little bit down the road, probably the beginning of next year, when the real effects of this pandemic hit home, but in terms of job losses, etc. Is there an AVOD service be waiting in the wings, really, to appeal to many, many consumers who are happy to watch ads? We've seen Pluto launching. We've seen lots of other competitive AVODs launching around the world. Is AVOD a thing in LATAM at the moment?
we have witnessed in last March during the start of the quarantine, the launch of Pluto TV, which is the platform from Viacom CBS. And it has been great because we had some examples on Abbott system in the past, like Crackle from Sony, that it doesn't work. It didn't work because it was, I don't know, very early for the audience, and the audience was more related to another kind of platform or content. But Pluto TV arrives in the best moment, and they're gaining a lot of users in the region. And even we don't have the most updated figures, we know people is watching and people is targeting a system like Pluto TV, which is not only alone. There's another company from the US called Tubi, which is very well known in the US, but it started to become a good player for Latin America. They have closed a very important deal with TV Azteca in Mexico, and they're expanding the platform all across the region. In the next couple of months, we need to understand that SVOD are not alone anymore. And along with the SVOD and along with the local player as Globo and Televisa and Grupo Clarín, we will start to find much more original content on the AVOD platforms. Pluto TV is a great example of that.
Yeah. And how about Peacock? Is Peacock going to be launching in LATAM anytime soon?
We don't know yet. It's going to be next year, I believe, but I'm not sure if Latin America is going to be the first. And you have to consider that Peacock has two business models in the US, but in Latin America, I'm not sure if it is going to be an AVOD or it's going to be an SVOD. That's not very clear.
Whatever would probably happen on the next couple of years has just sped up the process, and it's happening in 4 to 6 months. So I think it was a trend. So people are consuming more content on digital platforms, and because of COVID, because of people at home, and the economic situation that is going to get worse, the AVOD has just grown up on the region too. Globoplay has the two models also, so we see the SVOD base growing, but also the advertising model has increased a lot on the viewers too.
So you offer a free model as well?
Yeah.
But when it comes to producers and international businesses wanting to do business with Latin America, and in particular Brazil, what are the opportunities in terms of content acquisition and co-productions, etc.? Angela, can you talk through how you work? What are the key territories that you collaborate with, and what perhaps are the opportunities going forward for other territories to get involved with?
We have a big business in Latin America. The focus of the company is all in Brazil, but then we, on the international division, we do business with the whole territories in Latin America and all over the world. But in Latin America, more specifically, we have right now 14 volume deals with free TV stations all over the continent. We license 7,000 hours per year of content on the region. And we have right now 33 productions on the air between free TV and pay TV. So that means there are opportunities for everyone. People are consuming content in the whole country, in Brazil and in other countries around Latin America. Right now, we have people are consuming so many classics and reruns. I would say all over the world, not only in Latin America. But we stopped our productions for a couple of months. Right now, we are returning with our productions right now this month, but they were stopped for a couple of months. Our rerun, the moment we stopped the shooting of the primetime telenovela and started with a rerun, the ratings on the next day were the same, and the trending topics on Twitter and people talking about it on social media, in our platforms and on others. So that means people are willing to watch the classics and the reruns, the big hits. And then we have other examples like that in other countries in Latin America. I think Fabricio is based in Argentina, and he probably knows that. But there's a marathon of our biggest hit called Brazil Avenue. It's one of the most sold telenovelas in the world. We produced that show in 2012, and it's our big hit. And it is now on air in many countries in Latin America. One of them is Argentina, with a marathon on Sundays. So it's just one of the examples that it's made clear for us that people do want to watch classic contents and all over the markets. It's also on air in Mexico, one of the biggest markets in Latin America. So and it was a hit on the rerun in Brazil too. So at the same time, it was on air in Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, and I think a couple more countries in Latin America, El Salvador and Honduras, maybe. But it's all over the place.
Classics are always on top, not because they are high value content and people already love them, but also because most of the broadcasters in Latin America, they are dealing with the ad price fall. So most of the advertising situation is critical due to the COVID expansion, and most of the channel need to reposition some key titles. Telefe has been the home of Globo's content, so Avenida Brasil was a huge success again, and in a different format. As Angela says, it's a marathon. It's not one day during the week or 2 days. It's a marathon on the weekends. So I think broadcasters are also trying to do new strategy on how to publish that content, because they have to compete with more platforms. So in this context of advertising going down, audience going up, classics which are in the library, and you already have the possibility to put them again. So it's a good combination to see what's going on in the region. And I'm not saying this is only for Latin America. I assume it's happening in other parts of the world.
Speaking from a UK perspective, I know a handful of British factual producers that have made the trip down to Rio Content Market, for example, really looking to try and build co-production partnerships with Brazilian and other Latin American producers and networks. It doesn't seem to have happened, from where I'm standing. What do you think the barriers are between British and European producers working collectively in a co-production capacity with Brazilian and other Latin American, Mexican producers, for example?
Right now, we have one that is actually shooting, is on production, that is co-production between Globo and Sony. We closed a deal with them for the production of 3 different series. One is called The Angel of Hamburg. It's a very international story about the war in Germany, and a case of the with the Jewish in Germany during the Second World War, and that is being shot in Argentina and in our studios in Rio in co-production with Sony. And then there are 2 more yet to come.
So most of the production companies in Brazil, they are developing content from Brazilian networks, as they have a very interesting incentive law to develop content and to broadcast in the country, and they have the audience. But at the same time, it's important to mention that Latin America is showing something, a new face. For the last couple of decades, most of the international players consider Latin America a telenovela-only producer. And there has been a huge diversification of contents, of genres, from documentaries to animation to formats and many, many others. But I think that in the last couple of years, co-production has been the king of that game. Why? Because Latin America has very good talent, very young talent, good idea, fresh stories, something that is very requested by the international market. From the US point of view, many studios like Sony, but also Disney, also Warner, has developed a lot of products and co-productions within the full region in Colombia, in Argentina, in Chile, in Uruguay. HBO has developed some originals there as well. So I think the fiction side is something that has been explored in the past by the Hollywood studio. The brand new thing could come from Spain, and I think we need to talk about it in the context that the Spanish content, the Spanish language content, is getting much more relevance all across the world.
And how about Brazilian and Latin American content exports, distribution and production? I mean, if we're looking at your biggest export markets, Brazil, if we can come to you, Angela, on this, ignoring LATAM for a second, what are the biggest export markets for Brazilian content?
First, Portugal, Angola, the Portuguese-speaking countries, and because we have a historical relationship with them. But not only that, we've been selling each time more. We have some amazing cases with telenovelas, for our own surprise. Telenovelas in Germany. We had an excellent case with one of our telenovelas with ProSiebenSat in Germany recently. That was we're really willing to test different models and risk sharing models in order to open some new markets, and that was the case with Germany. Everyone was happy with the results, and that opened other doors for us around Europe too. So on the past couple of years, Europe turned out to be an important market for us, even besides Portugal. So Spain, Germany, France, Italy, we sell our content to those countries. US, not only telenovelas for the US Hispanic market, but our series to other players in the market, especially OTT platforms such as Sundance Now and Shudder from AMC, for example, in US and other English-speaking countries. So we license shows even to Australia. Asia is not one of the most important markets for us, but we recently had a case with Hulu in Japan, licensing two series there. So in the past 5 years, we've been producing so many series and edgy content, very high quality, and that has been super well accepted in many countries all over the world.
So other than telenovelas, what are the other types of drama that are doing particularly well internationally?
Basically, drama content, but we've been producing shorter series too. So 10 episode, 8 episode, or even our super series that we call that's 50 to 60 episodes. And it can be, we have thrillers, we have comedies, but also higher drama content too.
Yeah, I think dramas has become. I mean, in the past, you can have in a full season 250 episodes or something like that. It was huge production values because it was based on the idea that the most you produce, the best way to monetize that content. But now, the international market is requesting shorter content, drama content. So Globo is a great example, but there are many big, small, and medium-sized enterprises doing dramas of 8, 10, 11. And the good point about it is that the majority of the SVOD platforms and AVOD platforms are investing on originals. So we are seeing Amazon, we are seeing Netflix, Claro Video as well, and they're all getting Latin American talent. And that's the important thing because that content is being developed, is being produced, and is being exported from our region. But of course, it is outside the radars because they consider as Netflix original or Amazon original. But most of the people working there, production, directors, creatives, most of the staff and the talents came from the region. So there are many examples we didn't mention, but Chile has a great industry in terms of drama, and many platforms has placed their eyes in Chile because it has a very consistent industry in terms of production, and there are a lot of incentive from the states and from private companies. So the region we are talking about, which is almost 20 territories, is very diversified. So we are not talking only about drama. I think that we need also to highlight the factual entertainment. We also need to highlight documentaries because when Netflix launches The Last Dance from Jordan, nobody knows or nobody believes that product is going to be the most watched content, or like you say in the previous while the one also from Netflix, I don't remember the name, but it was a huge factual entertainment show, and I think Latin America has a lot to offer in many other aspects apart from fiction. But of course, fiction is the most important one.
So now it's that time of the show where you get to nominate your hero of the week and who you're going to be telling to get in the bin. Angela, who's your hero of the week?
Well, I would say my heroes of the week are all the doctors dealing with COVID-19 patients every day and putting themselves into risk for saving others.
Has there been any public outpouring of support for the doctors? Like in the UK, there was every Thursday, there was a clap. Everybody used to come out on their doorsteps, and you had that there as well.
It's beautiful to see, because it's really touching to see what they're doing out there. And there are some cases of some of them that cannot come back home in order not to infect their families. And so they are not in contact with their own families during this whole time in order to save the ones that need the most. So it's really beautiful what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the ones doing a proper job.
Yeah.
Fabricio, who's your hero of the week?
Well, not to repeat to Angela, my heroes are all the fathers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins that are at home and outside home trying to entertain our kids and trying to make the best jokes and the best tells. It's difficult time not only for adults, it's difficult time for kids, and we need to pay attention more to them. And with all this situation on the COVID, it becomes much more complex. But I would like to say thanks to all them, because sometimes they need to be much more creative rather than other kind of situation.
Fabricio, come on then. Tell me, have you got any tips? Have you got any creative tips for entertaining your kids? What can we learn from you?
Well, we decided at home to limit the number of hours and minutes in front of the screen. So we are trying to put more hands on painting. We are trying to put more hands on games with cars and with dolls. And I have a daughter and a kid, and it's a bit complex, because their age are different. But at the same time, I'm feeling very comfortable making song with them and trying to put some music and has this time, to make them learn what our fathers gave to us. But sometimes we don't have those time in the last couple of years. So this is a very good opportunity to be with them.
Fabricio, you're putting me to shame. I kind of, I've been hunched over my laptop for the last 12 weeks, and I try to help with some maths. They're not going to learn much from me from mathematics, I'm afraid. But and now it's time to nominate who you're going to chuck in the bin. Fabricio, who or what are you going to put in the bin?
Well, during quarantine, we have more time to watch the news and the TV channels who are more related to that genre. And we hear a lot of people breaking the quarantine and doing things that are stupid, like gathering together, like going to places, like visiting some familiar. So this situation for me is very, very sad, because they don't understand that this is our responsibility in this situation. So I will throw to the bin definitely to that part of the humanity who is not taking care of them and their relatives.
The quarantine breakers. And I think probably, without getting too political, but there are many leaders, I think, in right across the world who haven't perhaps given, the right leadership when it comes to lockdown and quarantine and all the rest of it. Angela, who are you going to tell to get in the bin this week?
Well, I put in the bin a man called João Teixeira Faria. He was known as John of God. He was a spiritual Brazilian leader and a healer. He used to do surgeries, spiritual surgeries, and people from all over the world would come to this little town called Abadiânia in Brazil during 3 decades. But then it came to public in 2019 that he used to, during this whole time, he used to harass and rape women using his power and even threatening women who mentioned they would go to the authorities to tell them about the abuses, and he would threaten that women and use his power not to allow that to be done. And then once the first woman came into public, she was actually a Holland. It was an international, one of his international clients that came into public on an interview. After that, more than 300 women came to public also following the hashtag #MeToo campaign. Thanks to that, and thanks to all those women that stand up together and hold their hands not to allow those type of horrible things to happen anymore. So I put this man to the bin this week.
Is he recently been tried, or is he currently in prison, or what's?
He got arrested. Yeah, he got arrested, and he was in prison. As far as I know, he's an old man. He's a 70-something-year-old man. And right now he got the allowance to go to home because of COVID situation, but still on domiciliary prison. But he's at home.
Well, it sounds like a very harrowing situation that lots of people have gone through, and it obviously sounds like something that could be the makings of a documentary, and that sounds appalling.
Yeah, there is, and that is on my mind right now. I'm very impacted with that situation because I just watched a documentary series about that case. And once I saw it on the news on 2018, there was not much about it. But on the documentary, it's actually on Globo Play. It's 6 episodes telling the whole story, what we know on the news behind the stories of his life. He used to rape even his daughter. His daughter was raped since she was 10 years old by her own father. So it's a terrible situation. And I was very impacted by it.
Yeah, I bet. Well, absolutely. That is a sad note to end on. Fabricio, Angela, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been really fascinating to hear about opportunities in Brazil, the market in LATAM as a whole, and certainly given me a bit of an insight into it, which is great. So thank you so much for joining us, and as ever, we hope to see you down the road at some point.
Yes, thanks to you, Justin. It was a pleasure to be here on the show, and thanks for the invitation. I hope we cross again sometime soon around the markets.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was my first podcast, and I can feel my nerves, but it was wonderful. Thank you very much for the opportunity and to talk about Latin America.
Thanks, guys. So it's that time in the show when we get to go over to Riga again and speak to Girts Licis from K7 Media. Girts, how are you today?
Hi, Justin. I'm very well. And how about you?
Yeah, I'm very good. It's we talked about summertime and a summer like no other last week, even more so. I think people are actually starting to go on holiday from what I can tell, right? A lot of people seem away from their desks. I'm getting out of office messages. People are still trying to get away from holiday. Maybe they're not flying, maybe they're just going local, but I get the sense that people are trying to have some sort of sense of normal holiday time.
Yeah, it's encouraging to receive automatic messages that they are not out of the room, but out of the home actually, or office.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I know we are talking about Latam this week, and actually I was supposed to be in Brazil and Argentina this month, so I'm still in Riga. So I'll try at least on this podcast to kind of transfer myself to Latam.
Let's all transport ourselves down to Sao Paulo or Buenos Aires or Rio or any of those other wonderful cities in Latin America. So tell us about Latam.
Okay. Well, no doubt, this is an amazing part of the world, like you just said, but also quite specific in its tastes and the ways it does business, in our industry at least. So the good news for everyone wishing to do business with Latin American countries is that these nations are some of the keenest TV viewers in the world in terms of hours they are spending watching shows. It's more than 5 hours per day, I think. And interestingly, this pattern also applies to younger audiences, which may be more difficult to reach elsewhere. And though the tastes of different generations may differ, of course, with younger audiences unsurprisingly more open to imported shows like US sitcoms, for example. One thing that I'm finding really interesting is that for most non-Spanish speaking people, it seems like these, I think, 17 or so Spanish-speaking territories in Americas and Spain on the other side of the Atlantic must have a lot in common. We see, for instance, how quickly and decisively the global streamers move to establish a Spanish office, with this whole Spanish-speaking world in mind, obviously. But the truth is, while the language is a common factor, of course, that's all much less straightforward than it might seem at glance. For instance, even productions of one of these countries, or even co-productions between several of them, in many cases get dubbed into the broadcasting country's local Spanish language with the local voice actors, locally specific words and idioms, with some territories being more sensitive to this than others, of course. Another specific of this region concerns the length of shows and scheduling. I guess it's coming from the historic telenovela viewing tradition that series tend to be much longer than the 13 or so episode seasons we are used to in Europe, for example. And in many cases, distributors find it quite challenging to achieve successful sales there for finished shows as well as scripted formats for this reason. An average telenovela runs for between 6 and 12 months, and it is typical for schedules to consist of stripped slots. There are even 3 to 4 primetime slots for different telenovelas throughout the evening each day in some countries. The first might be a more family-friendly show, broadcast at 6 p.m., with themes becoming progressively more adult by 10 p.m. These specifics have led to quite a distinctive regional bubble, where a lot of acquisitions, both for finished shows as well as for formats, are going on among the countries within Latam. Though the situation is, of course, changing in recent years, particularly with growing presence of global streamers. But still, programming and formats from countries like Turkey, Greece, India, or Korea may find it easier to get attention from buyers there than productions of some major Western TV markets. Turkish drama, for instance, has taken Latam by storm, attracting impressive viewing numbers for many of the key broadcasters. Channels such as Telefe in Argentina at some point have dedicated even more than 6 hours daily to Turkish drama. They get dubbed in Spanish and are considered to be a fresh take on the genre. It often explores societal changes which resonate in South America, such as migration from rural villages and the challenge of urbanization. And Turkey and Latin America also share many of the same family and societal values.
Talking about telenovela culture, if you like, can you tell us a bit more about the specifics of that? Because I've always thought of it as maybe like the soap operas of like Neighbours and Coronation Street and EastEnders. Are we talking on the same sort of lines as those, or
Kind of. For many years, telenovelas have been a symbol of local entertainment, obviously. Generally, during the recent decades, the genre has experienced a considerable evolution from a somewhat naive fairy tale type of tone, which was characteristic in the 90s, when the series were usually constructed around a romantic couple that encountered many problems throughout the show's run, a villain who died or went to jail usually, and then usually ended with a wedding. to the so-called narco novellas created around drug cartels. They're kind of trying to become more contemporary, I think, particularly somewhere like Mexico, which is living between the traditional Spanish-speaking world, but also closely watching US, which is obviously one of the main TV trend-setting markets in the world. So like I said, most telenovelas have an average run of 6 to 12 months. The duration, as well as the overall story arc and conclusion, are pre-planned by the show's producers at its inception, but approach to telenovela also differs in different territories. Brazilian telenovelas, for instance, rely much less on individual stars than other South American productions. A Brazilian telenovela may have more actors considered central to the show. The main reason for this is that many telenovelas in Brazil are shot just days before they air, so the plot could be changed swiftly responding to public's reaction. Telenovela is still like the queen of genres in the region. And during the COVID lockdown, some broadcasters actually scheduled even reruns of almost 20 years old shows, and with great success, like Caracol TV in Colombia, which just recently launched on primetime a telenovela that aired first in 2003. Younger generations might be slipping away a bit from watching these long series, though, but to keep them to the screens, a quite interesting strategy was adapted in recent years, re-editing of classic telenovelas into shorter versions, kind of condensing them into a faster-paced, concentrated versions.
Interesting. And how about unscripted TV and formats, for example? What are the genres that are working better over there?
When it comes to format adaptations, the biggest Latin countries are considered slow burners. They tend to adapt successful formats after they have proved themselves in a number of other territories. In recent years, however, more modern formats are given preference, and bigger markets like Brazil also act as a regional trigger for surrounding markets. Besides, if we are talking about Brazil, it can also be chosen as a regional hub for other Latin adaptations, as seen, for instance, with Animal Shine's now Benejay's game show The Wall. Reality is probably the most popular format genre and the safest bet with audiences, as it is perceived as closely related to soap opera or telenovela, something reminding of it, of this culture again. So shows like Big Brother or The Farm are doing really well. But so are also big talent shows like The Voice, for instance. And again, I would probably speak about Mexico as a bit different market. Actually, Mexicans, I think, prefer being called Americans rather than attached to that region. But because of the Spanish language, we tend to kind of drift them between the both. Talent shows in Mexico, from singing to cooking and also skill sport, have gained the most popularity over the last recent years, while game shows and daytime variety shows have been on decline.
We talked about LATAM being in a little bit of a bubble, if you like. Is there any particular advice you could give anybody coming from outside the region, from different cultures, in respect to doing business, how you do business in LATAM?
Every case is different, of course. I know that it's something very different from what we are used to, but I think personal relationships are at the heart of most business dealings there. So you should definitely take the time to cultivate strong long-term relationships. Typically, meetings start off slowly and often late, so plan plenty extra time before and also after. And verbal communication is often given greater weight than written. And small talk, like food, travel, family, life, or football, which are considered the safe topics there, is an important part of the meeting. Matters of importance, such as deal making, are generally not discussed until the end of a session. So you can also find people standing much closer to each other and having far stronger eye contact than in many other cultures. And they also are unlikely to suppress emotion in business situations. Emotional discussions are seen as a positive and imply engagement. So I'm afraid this current pandemic situation may have been emotionally harder to survive for Latin American people than for Northerners like Latvians, for instance. So I think just let's hope that things improve soon and that MIP Cancun, which is the Mexican MIP, along with the Rio content market and NatP in Miami, are among the most important program markets for this region. let's hope that MIP Cancun will still be able to go ahead from 17th to 20th November as planned.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of those key markets are all towards the end of the year and right at the beginning of next year as well. Having been to NatP on a number of occasions, I can vouch for how key, obviously, it is for the region. So you're right. Fingers crossed, and hopefully we can all be back doing business face to face in Mexico or Miami in the coming week. Fascinating, really interesting stuff, Girts. I've learned a lot this week about LATAM. Thanks to you, and thanks to Fabricio and Angelos. Cheers, Girts.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. Thanks as always for listening. As ever, please rate and subscribe to the show and share it with friends and colleagues. If you want to hear about our advertising and sponsorship packages, please email justin@boomdialogue.com. That's justin@boomdialogue.com. Telecast was edited by Ian Chambers. We'll be back with another show next week when we're focusing on distributors. So in the meantime, have a good week. Stay safe.